Happy Monday morning, everybody. Welcome into another week of Morning Jocks right here. Conrad Van Order and Damian Mitchell alongside you for the next hour. As we do each and every weekday here, keeping you up to date on everything you may have missed over the weekend. Week 0, the first weekend of college football season. But let's be honest, the main attraction of today, the main event of today is the fact that it is game week right now. Officially, we have waited many, many months to be able to say that, but we have finally made it, Damian. It is game week for both Alabama, Auburn, UAB, Samford, Florida, Kansas State again. Whoever it is that you root for, you woke up this morning and you get to put your feet on the ground and say, my team's going to play football on Saturday or Thursday or Friday or Sunday. But at some point this week, my team is going to play real live football that means something.
It does.
And if that doesn't put a pep in your step, if that doesn't make this the best Monday morning that you've had all year long, then I really don't know what to say to you. So good morning, Damian. How are you doing this morning? I know you and I are both fired up because we finally get to break down the games. We finally get to talk about actual football that's going to count. It's going to mean something at the end of the year. And I couldn't be more excited.
Yeah, Meek Mills, he said it best. Ain't this what we've been waiting for? You ready? Like, I've reached this point. Now, I will say, week 0, great appetizer. I was perfectly fine with the games. I could care less if it was sloppy. I didn't care about the fumbles. I didn't care about the interceptions. I care about a little bit of the money moving around. But that's for entertainment purposes only. But I think that what we saw in week 0 is going to set a great tone of what we have in week 1 to start things up in 2025. I mean, the anticipation from everything from the opening kickoff there in Dublin, Ireland, to the last game between Stanford and Hawaii. Like, I think that collectively what we got in week 0 was just fine with me. I didn't have a rooting interest in just about any of the teams. But by God, it was a great appetizer to start what week 1 is going to be. I mean, Auburn kicks off on Friday. Samford and UAB kick off on Thursday. Alabama on Saturday. Like, we are this is what we've been waiting for, guys. Like, this is the moment. This is the week where it's put up or shut up now. It's, hey, whatever you've done in fall camp, all the reports of, they're saying Jackson Arnold's holding the ball too long. What we're going to see Friday night if he's holding the ball too long. If we're going to see Deuce Knight. If we're going to see Ashton Daniels. What we're going to look like with Ty Simpson at Alabama. I think, to me, I am perfectly fine with how last week happened, over the weekend happened with week 0. Great tease. But now, this week, it's time for business.
Yeah, it certainly is time for business, and we just have so much to talk about this week as we'll break down, of course, a lot of Alabama and Auburn and what they're going to face on the road and their season openers, but a bunch of other games around the SEC as well. Damian mentioned it, UAB and Samford going to get underway on Thursday. You've got Jacksonville State in action as well this week, so we've just got so much going on, not only around the SEC, but also around the state of Alabama. So we've got a few things to get into today. We do, of course, want to recap what happened in week 0, but I want to throw this out there, and we'll do this again on Friday, of course, because we do this every Friday during football season. But I'm curious at the beginning of the week how things might change from now to Friday. And so we want to get your score predictions. At this point, this early in the week, what are you thinking for both Alabama and Auburn? So as it stands right now, Auburn is a 2.5-point favorite on the road at Baylor. You're going to get that game on Friday night. Alabama, they're a 13.5-point favorite in Tallahassee on the road, taking on Florida State on Saturday. So as it stands right now on Monday, what are your score predictions for Alabama and Auburn? How do you think that those games are ultimately going to turn out? Want to hear from you this morning, and then, of course, we'll hear from you again on Friday and see if anybody's had a change of heart over the course of the weekend. Because I get it, right? People wake up on a Monday, you're feeling really good about the game. You're really excited. Oh, we're going to kill them. It's not even going to be that big of a deal. I can't wait to throw the victory parade, and you're already planning your celebration and this, that, and the other. And then when Friday gets around, you're like, man, okay, getting a little nervous now, maybe overthinking some things a little bit. So always fun to see what your score predictions are. So you can send those in 205-834-9450. This early in the week on your Monday morning, what are you looking for from Alabama and Auburn? How do you think they're going to fare in those season openers? We would love to hear from you again on the courtesy GMC text line at 2005-834-9450. But before we get into what's coming up in week 1, Damien, we have to take a look back at week 0 because we had a handful of games to enjoy on Saturday, and none bigger than Farmageddon, which you had going on over there in Dublin, Ireland, on Saturday morning. 11 a.m. kickoff to get us going here in the 2025 college football season, where you had a top 25 matchup between Iowa State and Kansas State. And boy, oh boy, this was about as sloppy of a first half of a college football game as you could have to kick off a season. It was, I mean, you had Kansas State muffing a punt on their first possession. You had, 4 fumbles combined in the first half alone. And I'll give it to them, right? The conditions were rainy. The conditions were certainly not ideal. But when you play football in Ireland, you know, out of 50-50 chance it's going to rain like that. And it did, unfortunately. So, yeah, kind of an ugly game early on. It was 7-7 at halftime. Nobody really able to pull away. It just didn't feel like anybody really was trying to win the game, at least early on. But then it really came alive in the fourth quarter. So Iowa State was up 14-7 going into the fourth, but that's where you had most of the action. You also had the first bad beat of the year. If you are in a particular class that thought that maybe they were going to score a lot of points in this game and you took the over, you were probably very disappointed that they ultimately called back the Iowa State touchdown on the final drive. They marked him down at like the 1-yard line. And so instead of it being a 31-21 victory for Iowa State, it ended up being 24-21 because they were able to just take a victory formation late in the game. But unfortunately for Kansas State, it just wasn't their day for them. So Dylan Edwards, one of their best players, and he was the guy that actually muffed the punt there on, I guess, their first possession of the game early on in the first quarter. So he gets banged up. He gets knocked out early, so things not looking great for Kansas State early on. And, you know, I saw a lot of people talking about this online, and I'm sure you saw the same thing, Damian. But you go and you look at Kansas State, and, like, if you just go and look at, like, what Avery Johnson did, you'd be like, he had himself a pretty good game. They just weren't able to do it. But it just felt like, and I'll give it to him, there were a lot of drop passes on both sides. There were a lot of, you could tell there were a lot of issues. Some of it definitely had to be nerves because you can't tell me that these guys were going to drop this many passes. There were so many drop passes in this game. But for Kansas State, it just felt like every time they needed Avery Johnson to make one more play to get them back in front or get them back in the game, it just wasn't happening for them. And so, again, you go and look at the box score for some of these guys, and like Avery Johnson, he has 273 passing yards, 2 touchdowns, no picks, runs for 21 yards and a touchdown. And then you look at what Rocco Beck did. He goes 50% completion rate, 180 yards, 2 touchdowns. I would say Rocco Beck had a better game than Avery Johnson because when Iowa State needed something to happen, Rocco Beck made it happen, whereas for Kansas State, that just didn't really happen with Avery Johnson.
Yeah, and I think early on, too, the weather had a lot to do with it. I think that neither one of the offenses could really go over the top.
No.
A lot of it was just intermediate to short passes, and it felt as though, like, some of the tight ends and receivers had to focus so much on just securing the ball. It wasn't much yard after catch. Now, the second half, it was a little bit different. I think, it was.
We had the 70-yard touchdown that Kansas State had at one point?
Yeah, they opened it up a good bit in the second half. But I think a lot of it had to do with Iowa State being able to get those key third downs running the football. Like, I think the defense for Kansas State they made it somewhat third and manageable. Like, they were third and medium where it's like, okay, if you could stop them right here, it actually bodes well in your favor. But then Iowa State was going for it on fourth down. So it's like, oh, yeah, this is 4-down territory every spot of the field, it seemed like in the second half. But to your point about Avery Johnson, it was either, they would have the right play call, the pass would just be, half an inch to the left, a little too far out for a receiver, or hit him right in the hands and it would drop it. But overall, it was a tale of two halves. And once Iowa State kind of started to realize they would make control, a big fourth down stop on Avery Johnson, even with review, it showed that he was a little bit short.
That's just one of those plays where I don't know if you feel the same way about it, but when you need 1 yard and you're setting your quarterback up 5 yards behind the line of scrimmage,
right.
I never understood why teams are so obsessed with we need 1 yard, so how about we make our quarterback have to get 6 instead of 1? I
Yeah,
just
the running start didn't help.
nope,
The running start
nope.
didn't help. So that proved to be a big stop, and Iowa State capitalized and really just chewed the rest of the clock the rest of the clock out for the game. But overall, I think one it's kind of difficult to take away from a lot because again the weather kind of dictated a lot of
It
the
did,
things on the
yeah.
offensive side of the ball for both teams. But once they settled in, it ended up being a pretty damn good ball game. And it kind of set the tone for the rest of the day as far as big plays from the quarterback position. If you looked at Western Kentucky, the MacGyver guy was just Todd Hilton knows what knows what he's got at the quarterback position. As far as their matchup with Sam Houston State, and even to UNLV and Idaho State. I was unfamiliar with Idaho State's game, but Dan Mullen, I don't know what he needs to do defensively, but UNLV may be in for they're going to be in for a long year if they don't find some answers on the defensive side of the ball. But overall, going back to Iowa State and Kansas State, it was the most physical game that I had seen the rest of the day because I think that, both of these teams established themselves on the defensive side of the ball. And if they had to win an ugly game, it leaned more into Iowa State's favor. And that's kind of what happened on Saturday.
Yeah, so Iowa State gets out of there with a big win, and again, a win that may prove pivotal to them, not only when it comes to playing for a Big 12 championship, but maybe even getting a spot in the college football playoff. This could be one of those games you look back on and go, man, all right, that season opener really set the tone for Iowa State, who won double-digit games last year as well. But yeah, you brought it up and kind of the tail of the game, I think, in a lot of ways. So you had 21 combined points scored in the first 3 quarters. You had 24 points scored in the fourth quarter alone. So the game really picked up there late. But you mentioned it, neither team great on third down. Iowa State 3 of 14, Kansas State 5 of 13. But the difference, Iowa State 3 of 3 on fourth down, Kansas State 1 of 4 on third down. So that kind of tells you the tale of the game there as Iowa State inks out a close one, 24-21 over Kansas State there in Dublin, Ireland. So a big start to the Iowa State Cyclones as they get to start the year 1-0. But Damian mentioned it. There were some other games going on. You had Dan Mullen's debut for UNLV. Got a little interesting there. And how about a true Cinderella story from the state of Hawaii, the player that a couple players actually, that everyone fell in love with over the weekend. So a lot more to recap from week 0. We also have some of your score predictions coming in on the courtesy GMC text line 205-834-9450. Send us your early week score predictions for Alabama, Auburn. Heck, what other game are you looking forward to this weekend? Feel free to send that in as well. So we'll get to those a little bit later in the show, but more to come from week 0 of college football. We'll hear from Dan Mullen and the hero of the day for the Hawaii Rainbow Warriors next on Morning Jox. 6:18 here on your Monday morning. Appreciate you joining us on Morning Jox. Conrad and Damian here with you until 7 o'clock when we hand you off to McElroy and Kubelik in the morning. Coming up in about 15 minutes or so, we're going to dive into some early thoughts on Alabama and Auburn, their season openers. What are some of our bigger question marks for Alabama and Auburn heading into their week one matchups? You got Auburn at Baylor Friday, Alabama at Florida State on Saturday. So we're going to spend some time breaking down those matchups early in the week. But we also want you to send in your score predictions to the courtesy GMC text line 205-834-9450. And we are going to get to those a little bit later in the program as well. But wrapping up week 0, what we saw from the opening weekend of the college football season. Damian had mentioned it quickly last segment, and that was Dan Mullen. And I'm sure some of you forgot. Can't really blame you if you did forget. But Dan Mullen, now the head coach of UNLV, which Barry Odom, so they're just doing the SEC thing now, former SEC coaches. So Barry Odom has a great year for them last year. He's now the head coach at Purdue. And so because of that, you have Dan Mullen taking things over there at UNLV. And UNLV, one of the, right up there with Boise State, I would say, as, that group of 6 team that people have expectations of potentially being in the college football playoff at the end of the year. They just better hope they don't play Idaho State anymore, because Idaho State gave UNLV everything they wanted and then some on Saturday. So the Bengals actually went up 10-0 on UNLV in the first quarter. So a bit of a sloppy start there for the Rebels and Dan Mullen in his debut there in Las Vegas. But they're able to get things under control. I mean, it was a game throughout because you had a 24-24 tie going into the fourth quarter, but UNLV able to pull away, outscore Idaho State 14-7 there in the final quarter. They would score twice in the final 11 minutes to take over the game there. But if you had the over in this one, you were happy, unlike in the Kansas State and Iowa State game. But Dan Mullen able to escape with a victory in his first game there for UNLV. And you might think, man, coming from the SEC, just, everything that Dan Mullen's experienced as a coach, like, probably be a little frustrated after a win like that, right? That's what you would think, man. Probably shouldn't have been that close of a game. But hey, a win is a win at the end of the day. So this is Dan Mullen after the win, his inaugural, I guess, debut win as the head coach there at UNLV. And this is what he had to say post-game.
In the words of Maximus Decimus Meridius, are you not entertained? That was pretty entertaining. It was fun. Listen, hey guys, got our captains with us here today. Great job by these guys. Great way to come out and get a win. Obviously, it's so hard to win. So many new faces for us on the field. A lot of different things. I could get up here and give you all the different boring things of what happened in the game. And all the little things that we have to fix. But the exciting things of what happened in this game is we're in a tough game. Right. I mean, against a team that's probably, it's going to, their big game to get the opportunity to come play in our stadium, to come play against a team like us, and they're going to come out there, give everything they have, and they did. Their quarterbacks, that Jordan Cook, one hell of a quarterback, one unbelievable football player, but the great thing is finding a way to win, right? I mean, they're right. It's very easy. Could have been very easy for us to find a way to lose today as a team.
So there you go. There's Dan Mullen quoting Gladiator and in pretty good spirits after a close win over Idaho State to start off his time there in Las Vegas. So that was one of the highlights from week 0. You also had Kansas taking on Fresno State. They crushed them 31-7. Jalen Daniels looking like the old Jalen Daniels, as you would expect with him being healthy now. So Kansas, they get an impressive 24-point win there to start off their season. Damian mentioned it already as well. Western Kentucky, they cruised past Sam Houston 41-24. Maverick McIver, 33 of 51, 401 passing yards, 3 touchdowns to lead Western Kentucky over Sam Houston. So an impressive showing there. But the story that everybody latched onto, the final game you had on Saturday, Stanford and Hawaii. So how about this? Stanford goes up 10-0 early in this game. You're thinking, okay, This is just, it's going to be Stanford's day. I know Hawaii, a lot of people were high on them. They were actually a small favorite, I think a 2.5-point favorite going into the game. But Stanford, they're just going to find a way. Hawaii wasn't ready for the moment, blah, 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 all of that good stuff, right? Well, Micah Alejado, who was the quarterback for Hawaii, making his second career start for Hawaii, all he does is go 27 to 39 for 219 yards through the air, a couple of passing touchdowns to go along with it. He has 36 yards on the ground. He goes to the medical tent at one point. He comes back from injury to lead Hawaii, and Stanford had a 20-17 lead with about 5 or 6 minutes left to go in this game, but Hawaii just continued to push, continued to drive the ball down the field, and Alejado did just enough to get them in field goal range twice late in the game. So Hawaii able to win this one 23-20 on a walk-off field goal. And while everybody was happy about Alejado and what he did and his gutsy performance as the quarterback coming back from injury, it's really the kicker that everybody needs to be talking about, because there was so much that we found out about this kid after the game was won. But Kansei Matsuzawa, the Hawaii kicker, he nailed a 37-yard field goal with 2 minutes left to tie it at 20. He then nails another field goal as time expires to win it 23-20 over Stanford. And this is a kid, he's from Japan. He came to the United States on vacation when he was younger, went to an NFL game and said, you know what? I think I can learn to kick just like they do. So he learned how to kick watching YouTube. He convinced a small college in Ohio to allow him to go and walk onto their football program as a kicker. He then transferred to Hawaii this past offseason, and now he hit not only a game-tying field goal, but then a game-winning field goal again in the final couple minutes of regulation in a season opener. Just an incredible story, and listen to this young man. This is the Hawaii kicker, Kansei Matsuzawa, after the game speaking with the media.
I'm kind of nervous right now, more than like when I kicked game-winning field goal. Like, speaking English is tough. But, yeah, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the moment. And when we gave up the second touchdown to the Stanford, and I was like, oh, this is going to be my game. And I just prepared game-tying field goal and also game-winning field goal. I knew that was going to happen. So, like, just focus on myself, that, like I said, and that's the thing only I can do. So control what I can control. That's everything I do on the field.
That's awesome right there. He says he's more nervous trying to speak at the post-game press conference than he was going to kick a game-winning field goal with just a matter of seconds left on the clock there in the season opener. So that was an awesome story. I know a lot of people really latched on to that over the weekend, but very, very cool to see there for Hawaii as they squeak out a close one. And that was, what a great way to cap off week 0 with, again, it doesn't get better than that. You get a walk-off field goal in week 0 from a kid that learned how to be a kicker off of YouTube. Now, if you're Stanford, you probably don't like hearing that, but for everyone else, it's hey, just another example of why sports are truly, truly special.
Yeah, he got the coach speak down pat. Hey, control what I can control. Yep. He took ownership of like, hey, this game is going to be put on me, and I'm ready for this moment. But Stanford is going to struggle this year.
Oh yeah, they're bad.
I mean, yeah, they've had some change over the offseason. The ACC is probably going to. They're probably going to look at Stanford and say, yeah, we got this one. And then you go back and just like some of the things that were happening during the game, you ended up, you sacked them on third down. The defensive lineman does some like TikTok dance and they throw an unsportsmanlike conduct flag on them.
Yep.
And you end up they end up scoring on that drive. And it's like, yeah, those are the things we cannot do. And I think for Stanford, you look at that team, I just think they're going to struggle in the ACC. If you're again, no offense to Hawaii. I think that they still found a way to win the football game. But if you're struggling against teams like that, I feel bad for you when you run across the SMUs or the Dukes of the world, the Clemsons on your schedule. It's going to be some tough sledding. And Frank Reich, he's the interim head coach.
Correct, yes.
Yeah. he does not look too enthusiastic about being the head coach of Stanford. Like he had the same expression the whole game of just, yeah, we're here. We'll figure something out, but they never did. I just think Stanford's gonna struggle this year, man. It's gonna be tough sledding for them.
It is. I guess the one good takeaway from them is, you got up 10-0 early. You had a couple good drives, right? They had a 20-play drive at one point, chewed up almost 10 minutes. That was their one touchdown drive of the game, which, I mean, again, I guess if you're looking for positives takeaway, that would be it. But again, you lose to Hawaii. It's just you hit the nail on that. It's not going to be a fun season to be a Stanford fan, and they have a long ways to go to get that program back to where it needs to be. But that's your Week 0 recap. A little bit of what happened over the weekend, but I know a bunch of you want to chime in about what we have coming up now in Week 1 as it's game week for Alabama and Auburn. A bunch of you sending in your score predictions. Keep those coming, 205-834-9450. We'll get to those on the Courtesy GMC text line here coming up, but we also want to go through what are some of our questions for Alabama and Auburn and these Week 1 matchups. What do we still need to see from them? We want to hear from you as well on the phone line and the text line, 205-834-9450. We'll dive into these Week 1 matchups for Alabama and Auburn next here on Jox. 6:33. Welcome back into Morning Jocks. Conrad Van Order, Damian Mitchell here with you, getting you ready for week 1. It is finally game week for Alabama, Auburn, UAB, Samford, every other program across this fine country, as we have officially made it to the start of the college football season. And we want to take some time to hear from you, as well as give you some of our thoughts on our big question marks, what we're still looking for in these week 1 matchups for Alabama and Auburn, particularly because I think we all know what's at stake in terms of if you win the game versus if you lose the game in week 1, and what that'll do for expectations for the rest of the season. But just generally speaking, what are the things that, even if you do win, what are things that could still crop up that maybe would give you a little hesitancy moving forward for both Alabama and Auburn? Because we haven't gotten to hear a lot out of fall camp here as you gotten into the final week, because Alabama and Auburn obviously both wrap things up over the weekend, but you can tell things have been a little more tight-lipped now as you are getting into game week, and you don't want details leaking out on social media or videos being posted or anything like that. So what are some of the questions that we have for those two teams getting into the season? And I'll just say, for me, opening up, Damian, if we want to go and look at Auburn as they're taking on Baylor this weekend, I think the big thing for me is a lot of it has to do with Jackson Arnold and just how he looks. How comfortable does he look, right? Because going up against a team like Baylor, you could see very early on where, if he doesn't have his confidence early, right? Let's say that Auburn's not moving the football the way that they want to, or, you have the first series scripted, you go out there and you go 3 and out, or, maybe you get 1 first down and then right after that it's 3 and out and you're punting, and you're just not really getting that quick gratification of, all right, the play calling's on fire, I'm making quick decisions, getting the ball out, boom, 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 and it's just like clockwork. How is he able to manage that and bounce back for that? Because like you said, earlier, we've heard he's held the ball a little bit too long at times. We know that Hugh Freeze has gotten frustrated with that. And so if that's something that happens early, are they able to figure that out in game, or are you just kind of stuck offensively at that point if you're Auburn? I think that's a big question for them going up against Baylor. And then I think for Alabama on the other side, a lot of what I have or want to see comes from the trenches. Because, again, right, everyone wants to see how Ty Simpson's going to look. I think we all agree that's a question. But we've heard the defensive line maybe not having the best fall camp at times, not being able to get a big push up front. And there's a lot of hype behind this offensive line. But I think now with Jam Miller being out, the offensive line becomes not only more important because they're going to be expected to do a better job of, maybe carrying a lot of the weight and pass protection because you don't have a Jam Miller back there that can do that as well. But also, you've got some running backs that are going to have to prove things that don't have a lot of experience, and getting good push from the offensive line can clearly make a big difference there. So those are kind of my big question marks for Auburn and Alabama going into week 1. What about you?
I want to see what, on the Auburn side of things, I want to see what the defense looks like. If it is as good as we've been hearing during fall camp, I want to see how quickly they can jump on Baylor and really make this game disruptive. How can they knock Sawyer Robertson off his game a little bit? Can Baylor find an answer to, oh man, like here we go trying to throw the ball and do air raid stuff where we need to try to establish a run game? Maybe Auburn dictates that of, you're not going to be able to run the ball, so we're going to test. If you want to test our secondary, have at it. We want to see what you can really do. So I want to see what the defensive side of the ball, if it is as dominant as it has been during fall camp, put it on full display for everybody on Friday night. And I think on the Alabama side of things, I'm interested to see what the plan is of attack offensively. Yes, we know Ty Simpson is QB1, but now with Jam Miller being out, what does the running back rotation look like? Are they going to be able to say, if they're up maybe 7-10 points with about 5 minutes left to go in the game, are they going to be able to ground and pound? Like, are they going to have, kind of to your point, are the trenches going to put the game on their shoulders of, let's close this thing out? Or are they going to, continue to give Florida State some more opportunities to go down and score? So I think that the offensive identity, as far as what Alabama does now with Jam Miller being out, with the bevy of running backs that you have, are you able to put the nail in the coffin when the game is kind of in hand? And for Auburn defensively, show me. I want to see exactly what this looks like because, again, all the reports that we've been hearing is the defense has been winning the day. Well, now let's go out there and do it. And if you're Jackson Arnold, you probably feel a little bit confident. If Story Robinson goes out there and throws 2 or 3 picks, it's, yeah, this defense is pretty good. I've been going against all fall camp, so let's put it on full display.
Yeah, and I think that's the big thing, for me with Auburn, too, in this game defensively, as Baylor's going to want to throw the football. Sawyer Robinson's a very, very good quarterback. And I feel like the secondary is, if you feel good about an area on Auburn's defense, I guess similar to Alabama, right? It's the secondary for both of these schools. And so I think you feel really good about the matchups you got there. I'm excited to watch, like Jay Crawford. We've heard so much about him in camp. Do we see that translate onto the field for week 1, right? Like, does he go out there and have a pick early? And it's just one of those, okay, so everything we've heard about this dude in fall camp is immediately translating here in the start of the season. I think that'll be very, very fun to watch. But it's also just, going to I'm not going to say it's not going to be the most hostile environment you're in all year, but it's tough. You're going on the road against a fringe top 25 team, which is kind of where Auburn finds themselves right now as well. And this is a team that, maybe you see them playing for a Big 12 championship later in the year. And this is a win that if you get it now for Auburn, looks really, really good later on. And this, not that it doesn't look good now, because it does, but you know what I'm saying? Because this could be a Baylor team that has a very successful year there in the Big 12. And then I think for Alabama, I'll be honest, I said this last week on 3-Man Front. I've already made up in my mind Alabama's going to be down 7-0 at some point in that game because I'm assuming that Florida State's going to get the ball first, and Gus Malzahn has had months to scheme up his perfect opening drive for this game. They're going to find a way. I would honestly do something similar to what Oklahoma and Vanderbilt did, right? Run with the quarterback, do these little short, quick passes. Don't make Castellanos air it out at all. Just keep grinding at this Alabama front. Move the football down the field. Get an early score. And I think after that, you could see the defense settle in. But if that happens, how are you able to respond? Because we saw in games last year, right? Look at the Vanderbilt game where I know that was, kind of a crazy interception you had early in that game, but you find yourself down 14-0. Okay, Alabama may have been the better team for the final 45 minutes of that game, but you found yourself in a hole early on that you weren't able to dig yourself out of, right? Similar to the Oklahoma game, particularly in the second half. You were in that football game, but then you keep digging yourself in a hole by turning the ball over, and now you find yourself in a spot where, yeah, you might be more talented than that team, but you don't have enough time left to make up for the situation that you've gotten yourself in early. So that's what I'm certainly interested in for both Alabama and Auburn. But I know a lot of you want to chime in on this as well. And how about we go to Scoobs real quick? He's been waiting patiently to get on with us this morning. How we doing, Scoobs? Long time no talk, man.
Hey, man. How are you guys? Good morning to you.
Doing well, Scoobs. What you got on your mind this morning?
I got a couple of things dealing with Alabama and Auburn. Just a couple of things, I guess, to discuss from a breakdown perspective. And after that, I do have a question for you guys. I'm going to start with Alabama. I believe there's a lot on this offensive line. There's a lot on this defensive line. I mean, they're, have been posted to be a nasty squad on defense. It'll be interesting to see how they perform on the road, especially with the development and the stage for Ty Simpson, letting him come into his own. Obviously, Jim Miller, that issue that's going on. I believe still, though, based off last season, going into this season, that the growth of Florida State will be interesting to see, but I don't really kind of see it provoking a large problem for Alabama. I still believe this to be kind of a two-score game, maybe a 31-17 or, 31-14, something like that. I do believe that they get into a groove, and I do believe that they find, some growth there and some moving steps to kind of be able to get their win on the road. Mm-hmm. But going with Auburn, I believe it's kind of a sink or swim, man. It's been constant, the development of players, the edge in the fourth quarter, like you were talking about earlier, confidence with Arnold. I don't know. I do believe in this spread. I believe this could be a 27-24 or a 28-24. I just don't know where Auburn is. I don't know where they're going, but I do know that there's constant backlash about the development of the football program and who's running it. So I don't know. I kind of believe it's two separate tales. I believe Alabama will show what they've done, what they've been able to produce during the offseason, and I think Auburn's still a mystery. But quick question for you guys. obviously you have a lot of headlines going into, college football week in, week out. You had these from this weekend with Dublin to Dan Mullen to the, YouTube kicker. So if you guys could take apart and kind of self-predict some things that you expect to see or would like to see going into Sunday after Saturday's games, and then I guess the total recollect on everything into Tuesday morning, what do you think some headlines will be going into that? And I hope you guys have a great day. It's game week, and let's get it done, guys.
Appreciate you, Scoops. I mean, off the top of my head, I think, a big one's going to be whoever loses between Texas and Ohio State. Somebody's going to jump on is this quarterback ready to lead this program? Because you've got two first-year starters with Arch Manning and Julian Sayin. I think Clemson's going to beat LSU, and I think you're going to have a lot of headlines around Brian Kelly and not being able to win a season opening game. And, if LSU misses the playoff again this year, is it actually time to move on from Brian Kelly? I think that'll be I think that would be a big takeaway as well. And, I'll be honest. I think both Alabama and Auburn are going to win their football games this weekend, but I think we all know that if either one of them or both of them were to lose, that a large part of those fan bases would very quickly be ready. All right, when are we hiring a new coach? When are we moving on? And not saying that that's right to jump the gun, but I think we just know that would happen.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you as well when it comes to the Clemson LSU. It's okay. Is it going to be rinse and repeat again that LSU starts the year off 0-1? But this one is kind of like one of those, okay, we get it kind of losses where it's, okay, if you lose on a last-second field goal again like you did at Florida State a couple years ago, it's, okay, well, it's Clemson. And also another one, I think, the Notre Dame-Miami matchup where Carson Beck may go out there and throw for, 350, and everybody's going to think, yeah, okay. Yeah. There's no drop-off between Cam Ward to Carson Beck, and the Carson Beck experiment looks like it's going to be okay down there in Miami. I think that'll be interesting. And I think the loser of Ohio State-Texas, depending on how it looks, everybody's going to – if Texas loses, it's going to be, oh, well, we put too much pressure on Arch Manning. Oh, he's not Eli. He's not Peyton. And then everybody's going to look at Ohio State of, okay, well, I guess it doesn't matter who Ryan Day has at quarterback. It just works. And they still have the best player to ever, breathe in Jeremiah Smith.
That's right.
Take that with a grain of salt.
Yeah, best player ever. So, yeah, hopefully that answers your question for you there, Scoobs. But, going to be exciting. A lot of great games to look forward to coming up this weekend in week 1. But we asked you early in the show, send in your score predictions for Alabama and Auburn early in the week. You have done so on the courtesy GMC text line, so that is where we head next. Your score predictions for week 1 coming up here on Morning Jox. Few more minutes here on Morning Jox. Appreciate you making us a part of your morning each and every day here on Jox. Connor and Damien with you till we hand you off to McElroy and Kublik in the morning. And we are going to go straight to the courtesy GMC text line, 205-834-9450, as y'all have been sending in your score predictions all throughout the show, and we want to get to those. So now we have, we'll start off. Jamie chimes in. He says his predictions for the weekend: Baylor 34, Auburn 24, and he has Alabama 42, Florida State 17.
Okay.
So good win there for Alabama. Disappointing loss for Auburn, according to Jamie. Let's see. This text rolls in, says Alabama 42, Florida State 17. See, and this is the stuff I love about this. So that text that came in, the last time this person texted in was last September.
So it's been a while.
So you just know that somebody's been hibernating, and now that it's college football season, they're back. And we love that. We love to hear that here on Jox. All right, Gabe chimes in. He goes 27-24, Auburn beats Baylor. Auburn's offense doesn't get going until the second half, but does just enough to squeeze by on the road. And then he says Alabama's going to win 35-10. Florida State gets drilled, back on track for another rough year for the Seminoles. Let's see. Somebody, I guess we didn't mention that. The Avery Johnson's dad and brother getting, never seen two family members get into a fight like that after I guess one of, maybe the dad was, oh, he really wasn't that bad today. And the brother was like, no, come on, Dad, he sucked. Like, hold him accountable. And then they got, I don't know what they got in a fight about, but.
Yeah, that was, it was very telling. I was just unprepared for that to be his father and his brother because of the way.
I saw some people that were saying, oh, I didn't know that about him.
Yeah, I was.
Don't judge a book by its cover.
Not at all. Because, again, looking at Avery Johnson, I was like, there's something in there. Like, the facial features, the math ain't mathing. And then after the game, get all that information, I was like, whoa.
Now it makes sense.
Now it makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
It makes perfect sense.
Yeah, yes, it does. All right, this text coming in says Baylor 27, Auburn 24, Bama 42, Florida State 21, Clemson 31, LSU 27, and Ohio State 37, Texas 34. I'm going to assume that's an Alabama fan since they have all the other SEC teams losing that aren't Alabama. But I could be wrong. David from Coleman says 31-28, Auburn over Baylor, 35-17, Bama over FSU. And he says, can't wait to fly out Friday and see the Tigers in Waco. Well, there you go, David. Have a great time out there watching the season opener. Absolutely safe travels. This text rolling in, 34-20 Auburn. Zach says, going to be a great season. The SEC is wide open. I mean, does anybody really want to play Arkansas and Vandy this year? I mean, compared to the other teams in the conference, yes. But I get what you're saying. Yes.
Yeah.
They're not going to be a walk in the park at all. So this text comes in. Do y'all think this is a statement game for Alabama to prove they can be dominant without Jam Miller?
Could be.
I mean, I don't think that, again, and I said this last week, if you're losing to Florida State, it's not because Jam Miller hurt his collarbone. Like, you have bigger issues at play. Now, I think you want to have some confidence that if, let's say, he's not able to come back for the Georgia game, that you have somebody in place by then that you feel confident about. But I don't. I don't know how many people are going to take away, the running game from Alabama against Florida State. But who knows? Maybe they'll go out there and run for 250 and look amazing. Who knows? We'll see on Saturday. But let's go to Don real quick. I know he wants to chime in on his Auburn Tigers early in the week. You got about 30 seconds, Don.
Hey, guys, I'm in New Orleans and everything. But my prediction scores will be Alabama 34-21. Right on the line, Conrad, with you and FSU, Dave. And I think Auburn's going to win 27-17. But I'll see everybody tomorrow at Social Taco, guys.
All righty, Don. Thank you for calling in this morning. There you have it. He predicts Alabama and Auburn to both win. Let's see. I'm assuming this is Michael chiming in. He goes, Baylor 31, Auburn 10, Bama 24, Florida State 14. Whew. And we have a text that says, Lance says, is FSU any good this year? Well, we're going to find out on Saturday, Lance. I think we're all wondering the same thing. Appreciate you joining us. We're back tomorrow at 6 a.m., but now it's Mac